All right, I've never done this outside like this, so I hope the audio is clear enough for you. This is the third time in 9 months I have to repair my windshield, so it's getting repaired now for the third time. And since I'm not fully vaccinated, I can't really go in anywhere. I have to wait out. I'm just grabbed a bite to eat. The Lord provided a place, and I thought I've been thinking about this for recently. Everybody's kind of, because of things that are going on and COVID and all that, people are expecting the Antichrist to show up soon. And Christians are kind of awaiting the appearance of the Antichrist. Some of them, the way they understand 2 Thessalonians 2, they understand it as if we would be there to identify him. That's not how I understand 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, but definitely it's on people's minds. And one of the things that we tend to forget is that you've got the 10 horns that appear before the Antichrist. But I wanted to tell you about a little blessing that's happened while I was preparing to make that video. I'm sitting in a booth here in a parking lot, and I'm listening. While I was eating, I grabbed a bite. While I was eating, I was listening to a message on Daniel. I'm finishing up my book on Daniel, and it's always, you never learn enough. And the preacher was expounding the prophecy of Daniel, and he kind of took a pause there, a detour, and kind of preached the gospel before getting into his study of Daniel. And as he was giving out the gospel, I had my phone on full volume. A worker from a nearby hardware store came into that little makeshift booth in the parking lot, and he got to hear I kind of nodded at him, and I left that thing on full blast, and he got to hear the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ. He walked in exactly as that preacher was giving the gospel. I didn't lower the volume. I mean, the world blasts us with their stuff and with their music all the time, right? They put it on full volume, unapologetically. So I figured, you know what, let him listen to the gospel there. It was just brilliant timing. I think the Lord is really after that man there. All right. So while we are in anticipation about the appearance of the Antichrist, rather than musing about the appearance of Jesus Christ, just a little reminder, the Bible is pretty clear on this, that the Antichrist does not appear until the 10 horns first appear, the 10 final kings of the kingdom appear. You've got that in Daniel chapter 7. This is the vision of Daniel. I'll read you a couple of verses here. Daniel 7:7. Okay, that's where you want to look. Daniel 7:7. Daniel says, "After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly." I hope those sirens are not interfering with the audio too much. God have mercy on those people. "And it had great iron teeth, the beast, the fourth beast, that devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. It had 10 horns." Now, Daniel is actually there seeing the final version of the Roman Empire. The initial version of the Roman Empire did not have 10 horns. But the final version, we know from Revelation 17, will have 10 horns. Then he says this, verse 8 of Daniel 7, "I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn," so among the 10 horns, "before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things." And that matches Revelation chapter 13, the beast who blasphemes against God, and he's a man that rules on earth. So Daniel is formal, that he says, "I saw 10 horns, and among those 10 horns, the little horn comes up." And Gabriel confirms later on in chapter 7. And you know this is at the beginning of the Antichrist's ministry, if I can so call it, mimic ministry, because he shows up at that point as the little horn. He has not yet waxed exceeding great towards the south, the east, and the pleasant land, or the stars and hosts of heaven, like he does in chapter 8. So as a little horn, that means at the beginning of his appearance, he appears among the 10 horns. So you've got to have the 10 horns first for him to show up. So where are the 10 horns today? They're not there. Now, they may be latently there in the background, but all the other kingdoms that Daniel speaks about, so when he talks about the kingdom of Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, they were not latent, they were visible to mankind. And so the 10 horns would have to be visible to mankind by the time the Antichrist appears, because he appears among them. In fact, he has war against 3 of them and takes them out. At first, there's the initial relationship between the Antichrist and those 10 kings is antagonistic at the beginning. You got to keep that in mind. That's often forgotten. What else? If you say the 10 horns are latent, I know that I think the Club of Rome divided the world into 10 regions. But you got to keep in mind too that if we say the 10 horns are latent, then we have to say that the 4 horns are also latent, because in Daniel chapter 8, Gabriel tells us that the Antichrist comes out of one of the four horns of the Grecian Empire. The Grecian Empire, after the death of Alexander, split into the north, which is Asia Minor, modern day Turkey, the west, Grecia, Macedonia, the south, Egypt, and the east, Syria, Persia. And it's in the latter time of those four horns that they become 10, and out of the 10, the Antichrist shows up. So even the four are supposedly latent. The four kingdoms of the Grecian kingdoms are somehow here in some form, but this is the church age, so we don't quite see it. But the prophecy is useless unless you can see the 10 horns, because what's the point of it if you can't see it, correct? The whole point of prophecy is to warn us and give us a heads up. The rapture of the church can happen at any point, the rapture of the church, but the appearance of the Antichrist cannot. It must be preceded by the appearance of 10 horns, and they're not kings at the beginning when they show up. They receive power as kings 1 hour with the Antichrist at the very end of the tribulation, when God puts in their hearts to give their kingdom unto the Antichrist. So all that stuff is very much in the future. I realize that we could wake up in a couple of weeks and we can have the world divided into 10, but if you keep with the context, those 10 horns appear on the fourth beast. The fourth beast is the Roman Empire, which means there would have to be 10 horns within the Roman Empire and not necessarily 10 horns in the absolute global sense of the earth. So 10 horns within the Roman Empire. The last days Roman Empire will be split into 10, and out of those 10 the Antichrist shows up. So if you're looking for the Antichrist, I would suggest first you be looking for the 10 horns. But of course, we ought to have our eyes expecting the Lord Jesus Christ. Thessalonians, Paul says that we have turned from dead idols to serve the living God and to wait for his Son from heaven. That's the one that we're expecting, the Christ, and not the Antichrist. He can go to hell for all I care, and he will. Thank you very much. That's it. That's all I had to say. God bless you guys. All the best.